Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. This morning I'm looking at a fascinating book which will be of great relevance to people who are interested in history as well as legal matters. The title of the book is intriguing actually. It's The Laws of Ancient Crete, circa 650 to 400 BCE or BC, depending on what you want to call it. It's been written by two people, Michael Gagarin and Paula Perlman. It's come to us from Oxford University Press, and Elizabeth and I have given the title for our review of this book the following: Revealed by Archaeology, the Beginnings of Modern Law in Ancient Crete. Well, let's have a look at the book first. It's a heavy book. It's got a nice dust jacket as well, dust cover. There's the front, there's the actual spine, and then there's some comment on the back, which you can see. Now in the inside back cover, you've got some information about the similar publications, and likewise in the front you've got the same. The actual book itself, as I say, is a heavy book, and it runs to 560 odd pages. There's the index, which is at the back, and then after that you've got a general index on Greek words, which is extremely helpful for those who are not familiar with it. And then after that you've got locations of the various inscriptions. We'll come on to that in a moment. Then you've got a very detailed bibliography. So it's a very scholastic work, high scholastic work, this. Then at the front you've got the main front page there. Then a very nice dedication, which I'll show you there, which you can see. Then after that one has got a very useful preface talking about, starting off saying, the island of Crete was the centre of Greek Bronze Age civilization. So you can go on from there and see what's happening. It's worth reading the preface at the beginning. Then you've got the introduction and the rest of the contents sections there. And then the various texts are given at the end. And again after that we get to a list of all the figures. There are lots of interesting drawings and so forth. A useful list of abbreviations, which I did find helpful. And then a note on chronology, always important with these books of history, where you do need to get some idea of the perspective. Then there's the introduction, and then we go into the work itself. The work does have a lot of footnoting, and of course the bibliography is at the back, and you do have some numbering, but you've got a lot of figures, for instance, trying to explain exactly what the archaeologists have found. Now I'm going to try to be not technical in any way about this book. I found it a fascinating read, as did Elizabeth, and this is what we actually say about it. The first thing you need to know about the ancient Greeks, said a Canadian professor once, is that they had no idea they were ancient. And so it was with the inhabitants of Crete several millennia ago, as will be amply demonstrated when you read this remarkable book. It's a first edition, recently published by Oxford University Press, OUP. Now, from the 21st century perspective, however, the island of Crete is indeed seen as the seat of ancient and venerable civilizations, the roots of which can be traced back to at least 1400 BC, and I'm going to be using BC throughout because that's what I'm more familiar with, and so apologies to those who want BCE. So it goes back to at least 1400 BC, when until about 1200 BC Crete was the centre of the Greek Bronze Age, a time when, as the authors tell us, it featured a vibrant economy, a lot of palace building, and the invention of one of the earliest forms of writing, now known as Linear B, used mainly to keep administrative records. And following a substantial period of some decline, a significant new development emerged around 750 BC, namely an alphabetic script used eventually for writing longer public texts, the vast majority of which, say the authors, were, you may have guessed, laws, and thus revealed by archaeology the story of the laws of ancient Crete begins. So that's when we basically start, and it's all on evidence that has actually been uncovered. Now, we are presenting here, say the authors, a collection of all significant archaic and classical legal texts from Crete that have thus far been published, together with an English translation and commentary. Our aim is to make these laws more accessible to scholars and students, including those who know no Greek, and that's why at the back you do have some very useful glossary on Greek words. That said, the book will be of interest, we think, not only to those who know no Greek, but also to those who do for the book as well, because the book provides as much material based on interpretations of archaeological evidence on the cultural, political and social aspects of Cretan society in its various city-states or polis, as it does on the laws themselves. Now, inscribed law has been found in 10 cities, and they're actually 10 city-states as they were structured in central Crete. And the most famous one is Knossos, of which Sir Arthur Evans and Minotaur fame comes from. With continuing excavations, new laws are being discovered, but so far the bulk of the Laws of Ancient Crete seems to have been found in a city-state called Gortyn, which, judging from the map provided, was about 50 kilometres south of Knossos. The authors comment that the Gortynians enacted more legislation than most other Greek polis, and very sensibly, and luckily for modern archaeologists, they inscribed it permanently in stone, so it's literally written in stone, mostly on public monuments, thus making the law accessible to anyone capable of reading it. Think today of, for instance, of bylaws. Literacy, of course, was not universal, but it seems there was a serious intent to offer access to the law to broader sections of the community than merely to a tiny social elite. So an interesting point there, perhaps on legal aid today. You might want to be posting quite a lot more stuff up, although I don't know that that's necessarily going to be encouraged. Almost all our evidence then for civic status and the family in early Crete comes from Gortyn, and although the authors warn that this conclusion does not necessarily apply to Crete as a whole, the evidence available indicates that the most basic distinction in these laws is the difference between freemen and slaves, sometimes called serfs. Then there were the age distinctions between citizens and foreigners, and intriguingly, between men and women, especially in matters of inheritance and property rights. And of course we've been through all of this in other countries as well, of course. Compared with other Greek city-states, including Athens, it seems that in matters concerning the treatment of women, the Gortynians were a relatively enlightened lot. The claim is made here that women in Gortyn had significantly more control over their own lives and property than in classical Athens. And within certain restrictive rules, women could own and manage property, engage in litigation as plaintiffs, claimants or defendants, and make certain decisions about the disposal of property. All this, however, did not make them equal to men, as, for example, they could not inherit a share of a property only half as large as their brothers, or in many cases less, so it was unequal, since the brothers, of course, had a priority in inheriting city homes and cattle. And that's really been the way history has gone to very recent times, and it's still a lot of inequality. Daughters without brothers were referred to as heiresses, and subject to certain rules about marriage, which in practice did not appear to be all that restrictive, and in certain circumstances they could retain control of a total inheritance. And so these and a wide spectrum of other issues are discussed in detail in this book, from family and social institutions to money and the economy, to religion and the law. A commentary on the law includes legislation, writing and enacting laws, substantive law and procedural law. And there's also an examination on what is called reason and the rule of law at Gortyn, plus an analysis of why, in the history of law, Gortyn occupies a special place. And of course, I think I would add here, we're very lucky to actually been able to uncover this information. The authors supply a quote here from Plato's Athenian stranger, who remarks that the laws of Crete are especially highly regarded by all. The theory is that he was probably referring to Gortyn, which, in the period under discussion, which is circa 650 to 400 BC, they enacted more legislation than anywhere else in Crete, and displayed it more prominently than anywhere else, out of, presumably, civic pride, stemming from a growing economy and a sense of security and stability. Well, let me conclude by saying that, recognising, however, that some of their conclusions are challengeable, the authors are careful to point out that they have aimed not at presenting a definitive account of the laws of Crete, but rather at providing a foundation for others to build upon. Lawyers, and law students especially, we think, will certainly appreciate the almost unique perspective offered by this book on the influence of ancient Cretan culture on the development of Western concepts of law. And there are some, apart from basic principles, there are some very practical things, which of course we've highlighted in this review. Now, the publication date of the book is cited at 2016, recording this at the beginning of 2016. Michael Gagarin and Paula Perlman, I think, have done a very good job indeed here with this book. It's a heavy book, as I say, very nice paper being used, and so it won't split easily. And of course the reason for that is you've got an awful lot of very substantial detail, which I'll show you there. I've deliberately aimed at not going into too much detail, but you can see here a lot of detail. And it's not a book for people to skim through lightly. You have to go through this book, I think, in a great deal of detail. Again, you can see the detail there, and then of course there's the bibliographical link at the bottom of quite a few of the pages. I must say I did find it initially quite a difficult book to get through. It's just to show you a map of Crete, so you've got some idea of exactly where everything is. But you can see from this that there is a tremendous amount of work put in, and the chapter on Gortin in particular is of course a very substantial area of the book itself. But I'm very pleased with this book. I thought it was an excellent survey of the laws of ancient Crete, and something which I think people will find of great value today. So thank you to OUP and to the authors and to everybody involved in what is a fascinating book. It certainly caught our attention, hence the review. Bye-bye for now. Bye.